Thank you so much for watching Today with Marilyn and Sarah. My goodness, God has some really, really cool stuff for you. You may be watching right now and you have a physical need in your life, in your body. You might be watching and struggling with a hearing issue, or maybe you've got some skin struggles, you know, eczema, that kind of stuff. Sometimes people watch, they call and they say, I've got vertebrae problems, back disc problems, you know, slip disc, all this stuff. Whatever it is, we want to pray for you. So hop on the phone, get on the website. We love to pray. And prayer opens the door for God to do the impossible in your life. So don't keep the door closed and say, I'm not doing that. Step out. Just take a step of faith and say yes to God. Yes, I'm going to call. Yes, I'm going to get on the website and watch God do the impossible in your life. And Mom, I'm so excited. We have one of absolutely probably my favorite guests on the whole planet is Deborah Pegues with us. Yay!
Yes. Love you guys. Thanks for having me.
We love having you. Deborah.
And you will love her.
Oh my goodness. Completely.
Especially today.
This one,
Especially.
okay, I love this. 30 days to taming your kid's tongue. Woohoo! Yeah, baby, because I got kids.
And I don't.
Oh my goodness. And you can say things to them that they will like, what? Help us, because here's the deal. Everybody watching, you know people who have kids, you may have grandkids. This is probably one of the most important resources you will ever get for yourself, for your kids, for your grandkids. And the reason why I say this is because our kids and what they say is such a significant issue. Mom, I'm just going to do a quick little rabbit trail story on this. Yeah. Remember when I was in elementary school and I had field day? Remember the field day story? Yes. I hated field day. I was always the slowest, the da-da-da-da-da-da. And I remember I told Mom, I hate field day. I'm horrible. I always come in last. I hate it. I'm the slowest. I'm the weakest. I jumped you know, and I remember one day Mom said, that's enough. We're done with this, all of this stuff, yuck stuff. I would come home from school, nobody likes me, everybody hates me. My dad, everybody loves you, you're awesome. And they, right, but they helped me huge amounts, taming the tongue.
Wow.
Huge amounts. And in 5th grade, field day, they said, you're not going to say this stuff anymore. You're going to say what the Bible says. I'm the head, not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. He's caused me to triumph in all situations. Yes. And literally that field day, 5th grade, everything turned from there. I got blue ribbons and like 5 things came in 1st and 2nd. I mean, it was just like, it was literally a 180.
Wow, just because you changed your conversation about it. You know, listen, faith comes by hearing. I love that. We always think that means just going to church and hearing the preacher, but you need to hear yourself say certain things about yourself so that you can embrace what you've heard. Totally. But I wrote this book, 30 Days to Taming Your Child's Tongue, after the wild popularity of my book, 30 Days to Taming Your Tongue, that resonated with so many people. Yeah. And it was a 30-day fast from negativity. That's what it was. In this book, I have the first 15 chapters deal with positive communication, things you want to teach your kids to say, and we'll go through some of them like thank you, please, you know, whatever. And then the second half, I talk about negative communication that you just shouldn't tolerate as a parent. And the reason I struggle writing this book is because I am not a parent. I'm an aunt to a whole bunch of folks, but I've never been a parent. And I said, Lord, I don't want to write this book because they're going to say, what's your qualifications for doing it? He says, you're a communicator. People who are adults don't communicate well because they were never taught as children to communicate well. So that's why I wrote the book.
This is wonderful. And you know, you may say, well, my children are grown, but do you have grandchildren? Do you have friends who have children? You know, do you just need it? Because all of us deal with children on certain levels. So you must have the book, Taming Your Kid's Tongue. This is, I think, one of the most powerful things you have ever done. So call in, get the book, get 5 or 6 of them. They are wonderful.
Right, and the second half of our program, we're going to talk about bullying.
Yes.
Because that's a big deal.
Making sure your child is not the bully.
Right, right. And we'll talk through that in the second half. But the first half, we're going to talk a little bit about training for positive communication. And you talk about this in this. Of course, you want to get several of these, website, phone, get on, make sure you get this. But some of the things that are positive that we need to be training our kids, walk us through some of that.
Well, let's start with the basics. Thank you. Teach your children to say thank you. Children feel so entitled today because it teaches them that, first of all, people had a choice. They don't owe you anything. And so you teach your children to say thank you. Thank you for somebody who opened the door. Thank you to your teacher. Thank you, Mom, for the meal. Teach them to be polite, because that's good. It makes people know that you appreciate their effort. So it sounds pretty basic, but you'd be surprised at adults who don't say thank you. Bosses who don't say thank you to their employees. Well, they were never taught to have a heart of gratitude from a child. And so you want to teach your children to be grateful. Secondly, you want to teach your children to say please. Not just make commands. Bring me some water. Could you kindly? Could you please? May I have some water? When you read the story of Daniel and his cohorts, and when they were brought to Babylon,
yes.
and they said he requested, he said, could you please let us not partake of that diet? You know, I thought, man, you know, this guy's so polite. How could the guy not say, yes, you can do that? You know, so we got to teach our children to say, please. We have to teach them to say, I'm sorry. Not just sorry, but what it really means. When you do something, when you hurt somebody's feelings, you need to be able to say, I acknowledge that I hurt your feelings. You can say, I'm sorry I broke your toy. I promise not to do it again. Please forgive me. That's all part of an effective apology. How many adults do you know who don't apologize well? They'd rather buy you a present than to apologize.
Sure.
Or say it's not there at all.
Oh, yes. Oh, just ignore it and hope it'll go away.
And our words are so important, because I grew up in a home that my father cursed all the time. He would just go into cursing, and I would shake inside. And afterwards, you know, my father got saved, he's in heaven. But even now, if people start to curse, I find myself shaking.
Oh, yeah.
So our words have such influence
Absolutely.
on our children.
And sometimes parents think that's cute. You know, when a child says a bad word,
yeah.
You know. And but I have a little nephew, and he had a babysitter who was rather worldly, and he would come home and he'd tell his mom, he said, I know some bad words.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my goodness.
But you know what? And she taught him never to say that and never to repeat it. You could not get him to repeat a bad word. He would say, I can't say the word, and he would say, I just can't say that. But that's all part of the training. Train up a child the way to have him to go. You got to train him the way you want him to go. So cursing was definitely something that was out, not cool. But I want to talk about how to address an adult. That's one of my picky things too. I won't say whether it was a niece or a nephew, lest she knows I'm talking about her. Okay, so now she knows. But I was telling her something one day, and she says, "Girl, you're lying." I'm like, "Girl, what? I'm an adult." And you know, when we were growing up, we couldn't say lie. That was like cursing to tell somebody. To say the word lie was cursing when I was growing up. You know, but she could have said, "You sure, Auntie, that's the way that story went," or whatever. She says, "Girl, you're lying." So I have to stop and say, "Listen, I'm an adult. There's a certain way you address an adult." So teach your children that. You can't call adults by their first name. Teach them to respect adults like that. To call them auntie, or to call your friend's mom Mrs. or whatever. You just can't call people by their first name. And so as parents, you want to be sensitive to that, so that you teach your children to respect adults.
And the reason why we're teaching our kids to respect adults is because if they don't learn it as a kid, how are you going to be respectful as an adult?
Absolutely.
And if you can't respect authority in your life as an adult, how on earth are you ever going to respect God in your life?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a stair-step process here.
Yes.
And so just to blow it off, it's no big deal, they're just kids. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? That's the most essential time to teach them.
That's what Billy Graham said. He said the kid who has not been trained how to respect even their parents won't respect God.
Oh my goodness.
That's so important. I have a friend who's a teacher, and she was telling me about an incident that happened, and she gave some little girls some water, and they stood there, and the other one just kind of held it in her jaw, and she said, "Go on and swallow your water, the break is almost over," and the little girl just spat it on her. But her mom came to the school and said, "Well, I didn't see it," and so she wouldn't reprimand the kid or anything. She says, "Well," they said, "she didn't say she was sorry. You should have her at least say she's sorry." And she said, "No, well, I didn't see it. I wasn't here to see that, and I think she's too young to learn that." You're never too young to learn how to be respectful, but these things happen. That's why I want people to understand you need this book, so that you can teach your children how to flow and with authority, how to get along with people, and how to be pleasant, because that's not right.
Right, so get on the website, get on the phone, grab a whole boatload of these, because they will be a huge blessing in your life, helpful to your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your relatives. You got aunts, you got uncles, you got cousins, grandparents, you know, all this stuff. This will be tremendously helpful. And you know, the other thing you say here, you talk about is speaking up. How do you teach a child to speak up? but be respectful.
Well, you teach them that, because anytime there's a situation where there's an inequity being perpetrated on somebody, somebody's doing somebody wrong, you need to tell your children, that's not right. I'm not going to participate in that. But even with authority, even with their teachers, and I give an incident in the book where the teacher wanted the kids to all undress in one room, and this person was uncomfortable with it, and he says, I don't want to do that. I'd like to dress in an area by myself. He said, I don't want to see anybody's privates, and I don't want anybody to see mine. And I thought that was great, but his mom had taught him not to be intimidated by authority. You respect authority, but when authority is telling you to do, a person in authority is telling you to do something that's not right, then you need to speak up. So you speak up for the injustice to other people. You speak up for things that's going to violate what your parents have taught you. And you don't keep secrets, like you don't keep those things secret. You never keep anything secret from your parents. So that's what I talk about in the book. Make sure that you teach them to speak up, that they won't get in trouble. So that you know, you teach them the words to say. You do it in a respectful, non-emotional way to say, as Daniel did, I really would prefer not to eat that diet. You know? So that's what you do.
Sure.
And I give specific guidelines on how to tell a child to speak up.
That's really powerful. And so I just encourage you, hop on the phone, get on the website, because we all need this kind of stuff. And what I love about this too, though, is it's not just relevant for kids, but how many times do I need this?
Yes.
I need to hear it. I need to listen. I need to think about, and it reminds me, be polite, say please, be thankful. Learn how to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Yes.
And respect authority. And even when people are, you know, whether they're the barista at Starbucks or the person, the ticket agent at the airport, whatever it is, learning how to be polite and just go and affirming as well. So hop on the phone, get on the website, and when we come back, we're going to talk about bullying. Now, that's a really big deal. That's a real hot topic in our world.
Yes.
And we see it, you know, a lot of it kind of comes out of the roots of some of the Columbine massacre, you know, with Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris, and that was right here in Denver.
I know.
So that was, you know, many years ago. But bullying has now become a huge, huge issue. It's in our public schools, it's in our private schools, and they're really making mass campaigns on what do we do with bullying. And so watch this, because it's going to be extremely powerful to help you with bullying.
Every child is a unique creation of God, with a mind and thoughts of their own. Sometimes those little minds and thoughts need godly direction, and not only what not to say, but what to say and how to say it. In her brand new book, 30 Days to Taming Your Kid's Tongue, Deborah Pegues offers valuable insights for how to help your children learn to speak respectfully to an adult, express anger appropriately, understand the difference between tattling and telling, and talking to God. We'll send you your copy of this powerful book for your gift of $20 or more today. We'll also send you Children Who Hit the Mark. This booklet will encourage you with stories of children from the Bible: Joseph, Isaac, John the Baptist, Jesus, and others. Arm yourself with God's unchanging word for every circumstance and raise children who hit the mark. We'll also include our 10 Bible promises to pray over your children, everyday scripture card, all for your gift of $20 or more. Call or click today.
Living in a day when bullying is a big, big thing. You see it on the news, you hear it all over the place, and are there some answers? You know, our children, our grandchildren, maybe great-grandchildren involved in bullying. And I love this 30 Days to Taming Your Kid's Tongue that Deborah deals with bullying. And that's a very important issue not only we don't want them to be bullies, but also how to handle this and what to do in the situation. So Deborah, tell us, share with us, because it's really Holy Ghost revelation.
Well, you know, Marilyn, bullying is one of the main complaints in high schools today, and it's more prevalent in middle school. It amazed me that I thought it was more prevalent until I started this research in high school, but it's more prevalent in elementary school and middle school. But bullies are in pain as well. And I'm encouraging parents to make sure that your child isn't a bully and how to look for signs. If you see a child that's mean to pets at home or whatever, or they throw things and they show this extreme anger, there's a good chance your child could be a bully. And so I'm encouraging parents to control your side of the ledger and also to teach your children how to stand up to a bully. Now, let me just say this, because sometimes it may look like it's not safe, but bullies bully people who appear to be weak. And so if you look at the pattern, they tend to pick on kids who you know, they're not very assertive. And if you teach your kids to be assertive, to look strong, to look straight ahead, to say, oh no, don't do that. I don't like that. See, that's not ungodly to do that. No. Okay? That's not ungodly. But you got to teach your children to appear to be strong, you know, because really they like weak people. They don't bully just because the kids are fat or wear glasses. They do that because the kids look weak and vulnerable. And so you got to teach your children how not to be vulnerable like that. And so it starts with effective communication, saying no, in no uncertain terms. If somebody comes up to you and say, I want your money. No, you can't have it. You know, and making sure you tell the teacher, and making sure you go hang out with people who are not weak. You know, it seems like all the little weak people hang together. You don't want to be part of that group. You want to be strong and assertive. But you got to step back and say, why do people bully? Because my heart, as I studied this, went out to the bullies. It really did, because a lot of times they've been bullied or they're abused at home. They're frustrated. They are hurting because of their home situation. They'll see a kid who looks like he has a normal home situation, and they hate it. They hate it because they don't have it. And so they could be envious. There are any number of reasons, but the bullies are in pain as well. And I think that's important to understand that. You know, to tell your kid, say, listen, what is the problem? You know, ask a bully, what is the problem? How can I help you? You know, how can I help you? You don't ask them in front of everybody, but how can I help you? That's how Steven Spielberg, I understand, got started. Somebody was bullying him, and he got the main bully and he was making little films with his little camera, whatever, and he said, I'd like you to star in one of my shows that he's doing.
Oh, my goodness.
He did, and the bully became the star of his little piece he was putting together. But, you know, sometimes you just got to take an opposite approach and say, listen, I know you must be in pain. How can I help you? You know, kids can do that. Kids can do that. They can. They can.
Sure. And you talk a whole lot in this book, 30 Days to Taming Your Kid's Tongue, and really helpful. Really helpful, not only on bullying. And in the first part of our program, we talked about positives, saying positive things like thank you and please and being gracious and learning how to apologize, talking on negative stuff. And all of this is in this book and lots more. So obviously you need to get on the phone, get on the website, get a whole boatload of these because they'll be really helpful to you. But, you know, you talked a little bit about tattling.
Yes, and maybe I want to just say one more thing about the bullying, because a lot of parents are bullies. And so keep in mind that all of these attitudes and things that I talk about, the things you say, the best example is how the parents act. And so some parents come to the schools and cut up, and they'll threaten the teacher or whatever. So you got to watch as a parent that you're not setting the tone at home by being a bully. You know, maybe the dad bullies the mom or the mom bullies the dad. So make sure you're not setting an example so that your child goes to school and does that. Or maybe the child even feels powerless, and so the only power they're going to get is over some little vulnerable child at home. So you got to teach your kid, that's not going to be tolerated here, and that I will be doing an audit of your computer from time to time to make sure you're not cyberbullying. You have a right as a parent to do that.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
You better be doing that. Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely.
So tattling, how do we do tattling?
Now, listen,
What's
there's
the difference between tattling and telling? Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Tattling is meant to get somebody in trouble. And little kids do it because they think, you know, they're learning the difference between right and wrong. They think it's going to ingratiate themselves with the parent or the teacher if they tell on somebody. Tattling is meant to get somebody in trouble, but then you got to make sure that your kid knows when it's okay to tell, because telling will get somebody out of trouble or keep somebody from getting into trouble. So if a child has brought a knife to school, you need to tell. You need to tell the teacher. That's not tattling. But if your sister just got an extra cookie, you know, you're just trying to get in trouble. You know, if no harm has been done, it's not violating household rules or whatever, then, you know, whatever. That's just tattling. You need to teach your kids that people don't like tattletales. We saw what happened with Joseph when he told on his brothers and they sold him into slavery. He was being a tattletale, all right? So, you know, you got to learn the difference between tattling and telling. Telling is okay, tattling is not.
You also talk in here about whining.
Oh, yeah. Whine. And why do kids whine? Because it works.
That's good.
No, because it works. So as a parent, you can't cater to it. No. You got to say, listen, talk to me in your normal voice, in your regular voice. I don't hear it. If you're whining, I don't hear it. Whining is not going to get you anyplace. So don't cater to whining. Just don't cave into it. But kids know that you don't want the discomfort in the environment, so they say, you know, if I whine long enough, she's just going to cave in. And they'll brag about it.
Right. Check this out. I was in the grocery store. My kids were little, and one of them was, you know, losing the plot. You know, this whole thing. And they're kind of not quite making a scene, but definitely whining and loud and, you know, ugh. So we get up to the checkout lady, and the checkout lady, she's trying to help me. She says, oh, would you like me to give her a piece of candy? Like to make her be quiet. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to reward negative behavior with something positive? Are you nuts? What is good about that? And she was like, sorry.
Oh, that's tough love. That's
right. But I was like, since when? You're not going to give them something positive to reaffirm a negative behavior. That's crazy.
Well, and some parents are so harried and busy, you know, just give it to them so they can shut up. I don't have to be bothered with it. But, you know, I applaud the parents who, as you just said, I'm not going to reward that negative behavior just to clear the environment for right now, because you teach by what you tolerate. I want to say that 2 times. You teach your children how to treat you and everybody else by what you tolerate. And so you don't need to tolerate whining. You don't need to tolerate whining or pouting or any of those things, because, again, you're setting the tone. You're setting the tone.
That's all in here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, folks, this is where parents live, right? This is where grandparents live. How important this is, because we want our children, our grandchildren to be successes. Come on. All the whining and all of the junk, the bullying, they will never be a success. I could never look at my children and not want them to be a success. This is a success book. That's why Sarah and I really encourage you, get the book. Call in, and you're having problems with children, of course, you can leave your prayer requests. We would love to pray. That's positive. And we know God answers prayer, but you've got to have the book.
Now, also in the book, you talk about sassing your parents.
Oh, yes. And a lot of parents tolerate that. I had a friend whose daughter was just really nasty to her. And I said, I'm thinking, this doesn't just happen all of a sudden.
No.
This person has been taught to be like that. And she said, well, she's always been a little sassy. Duh, there's the problem.
Yeah.
You got to cut it off at the pass. You can't teach a child that it's okay to sass you, that that's disrespectful, and that you won't tolerate it. You need to immediately respond to it the very first time. You just act so shocked, and there has to be consequences. There has to be boundaries. A boundary must be set, and there must be consequences for violating the boundary. That doesn't mean you beat them necessarily, but there has to be a consequence. You have to take away something. They have to feel they need to know that bad behavior is a bad idea. That's it. They got to know that anytime they behave badly, that's a bad idea. It would be met with consequences, whether they, don't have the phone anymore or whatever. But there has to be a consequence.
And it's good because when they're young, you got to do this stuff. But sometimes we learn this stuff when they're 10, 11, 12. And so sometimes we think, it's too late, that boat sailed. But the boat hasn't sailed. No. And you can say, look, we've allowed this up to this point, but you need to understand that this is not going to help you in your life. This ultimately is going to be an impediment and is going to hurt you. So we're going to coach you now, and we're going to do some things differently. And so it's a new chapter. We're going to turn the page, and this was the past, but now we have a brand new thing, and we're going to continue to help you grow and to develop you and to help you get better.
Absolutely. In the book, I call it the ICE parent. You give them notice. I'm going to now be the ICE parent, the ICE. I'm going to be the instructor. I'm going to tell you what you have to do. I'm going to be the coach to show you how to do it, but I'm going to be the enforcer when you don't do it. There's going to be a consequence.
Awesome. Get the book. It'll help you loads.
Every child is a unique creation of God with a mind and thoughts of their own. Sometimes those little minds and thoughts need godly direction and not only what not to say, but what to say and how to say it. In her brand new book, 30 Days to Taming Your Kid's Tongue, Deborah Pegues offers valuable insights for how to help your children learn to speak respectfully to an adult, express anger appropriately, understand the difference between tattling and telling, and talking to God. We'll send you your copy of this powerful book for your gift of $20 or more today. We'll also send you Children Who Hit the Mark. This booklet will encourage you with stories of children from the Bible: Joseph, Isaac, John the Baptist, Jesus, and others. Arm yourself with God's unchanging word for every circumstance and raise children who hit the mark. We'll also include our 10 Bible promises to pray over your children, everyday scripture card, all for your gift of $20 or more. Call or click today.
I want to take just a few moments here to minister to you about relationships. And the truth of it is, we all have various kinds of relationships. We have shallow kind of surface acquaintances. We have ones that are a little more deep. Then we have some very, very core essential relationships. And we have them across the whole spectrum. We have family relationships. We have friends at school. We have work relationships. All kinds of different relationships in our lives. And if you're like me, sometimes those can be hot spots. Sometimes we have family relationships that are hot spots, so you think, ooh, conflict. Sometimes there are work relationships where there's misunderstandings and there's tension and insecurities, and all these areas can get a little tricky for us. But I want to encourage you to get on the phone, call right now, get on our website, leave a prayer request for your relationships, for your family. Maybe you have loved ones who don't know Christ and you really want them to know Christ. Or you have friends or coworkers, people in your school that don't know Christ and you really want them to have a very vibrant experience with Christ. Well, get on the phone, get on our website, let us know how we can pray for these individuals. But also I want to encourage you that when we have relationship struggles and conflicts, that God is there to speak to us, to encourage us, and to lead us into truth. Because I have found this in my own life. When I have conflicts and you know, there's kind of some tension and some struggles in relationships, I found that God often wants to help me grow as an individual. Not only to resolve the conflict, but also to understand who I am better, and as well to learn how to communicate more effectively and how to be more loving. So I just want to encourage you, when you have conflicts and struggles in relationships, there are opportunities for God to do amazing things in your heart. So hop on the phone, get on the website. We want to pray for you and all of the relationships that you have.